Hey there, it is Dusty Thunder again, and I have another Reddit story for you. This one is from the Relationship Advice subreddit, and it is titled, My 33 Male Girlfriend 32 Female Has One Incredibly Annoying Habit I Cannot Stand. Note, please keep in mind that this is a story from the United States where tipping culture is still prevalent. Okay, so this is going to sound petty. I promise you it isn't to me. We've been dating for almost 2 years, and in almost every way, she is the one for me. I want to get married to her. However, I realize this sounds so petty, but for some reason this bothers me so much more than it should. She has the absolute worst restaurant etiquette. 1, she barely tips. We both have good jobs. Money is not a problem for her or I. We kind of take turns paying when eating out. I normally tip 20%, maybe a little more or less, depending on the situation. Over the weekend, she tipped $3 on a $46 bill. Sometimes I've tried to leave cash on the table, but she gets upset, takes it, hands it back to me. We've only had a few fights, and almost every one of them have started like this. She is absolutely convinced that throwing a few dollars is more than enough. She gets all of this from her family. Her parents took us out last Christmas to a very expensive steakhouse. Her dad made an absolute scene and production of tipping $20 on a $500 plus bill because it's the holidays. Okay, so he tipped $20 on a $500 bill and said he was doing it because it was the holidays. 2, she sends almost every dish back. Something is always wrong with whatever she ordered. The hamburger is not done enough or done too much. There's dirt in the lettuce and her salad. The pasta isn't cooked enough. You get the idea. Every time. 3, she expects the waitstaff to be paying attention to her needs instantaneously and doesn't tip to compensate for that extra attention. She's not necessarily verbally abusive towards them, but she keeps making demands. Water or iced tea needs to be constantly refilled. We need more napkins. This fork is dirty, etc. If she's expecting or asking for something and that person isn't right there, she'll start asking me loudly where they are to get some attention. 4, she argues over the bill every time, demanding to speak with the manager to have something taken off or reduced because she wasn't satisfied. It doesn't matter if it's Applebee's or the Capitol Grill, never pay the full amount. I am 100% sure that this all comes from how her parents act at restaurants. I've seen them do this every time that we've eaten out together. It isn't a money thing either, they're not struggling. It is to the point that I don't like going out to eat because what I know is about to happen. She is completely aware of how tipping is supposed to work, but insists that it is optional and to stop throwing money away. There's no other situations where she has this antisocial behavior except at a restaurant. I cannot get my mind around it. Everywhere else she is kind, reasonable, sweet, but as soon as she's in a restaurant, she turns into this. How the hell do I convince her that this type of behavior needs to change and is really bothersome and antisocial? I've tried explaining time and time again, and it goes in one ear and out the other. She has been trained this way, man, for her entire life. And she is how old? She's 32, dude. She's been trained for 32 years that this is how it's done. To expect to be able to change her quickly after 32 years of training is an unreasonable expectation. You've tried, you've explained it. If OP's girlfriend is from a different country where it was the tipping culture thing that she came from, I feel like that would have been explained to us, and I feel like that would clear some things up. But that's not the case. Let's say, for argument's sake here, that it's not the case, because if it were, I feel like he would have brought it up. This would be a deal breaker for me, man. I gotta tell you, this would be a deal breaker for me. Candy Thunder and I both waited tables, so we are more empathetic toward servers than someone who hadn't waited tables are. And I know people who have waited tables in the past have this kind of viewpoint, but mistreating people because you feel like you're entitled to be able to do that is horseshit. And OP, these are like, there are so many of these that you need to be seeing and taking to heart because she's capable of this. Everyone's capable of being a shitty person. She puts her capability to practice and on display every time you're in public at a restaurant. And that's a flippin' problem. Why? Because chances are you're going to go to some restaurants between now and the end of your life. It's unavoidable. At some point, you could try to avoid restaurants for the rest of your life. She's going to want to go. She doesn't see a problem with it. How are you going to convince her not to go to a freaking restaurant for the rest of your life? Take the tipping thing out of the equation. And for our international friends here, even just the way that she's treating people, just the way that she's treating people is garbage. It's like having this entitlement mentality, like, I get to treat you like shit because for the next hour, you work for me, bitch. That's garbage. And as a server, you can see those people coming from a mile away, and there's only one goal: survive. That's it. Survive. and then have to make up for that the rest of the night because tips sucked on this table. They have to work harder to make up for that. And in the US, servers are paid less because they're expected to get tipped. Restaurants get away with being able to pay servers less because they do get tips, and they have to report a certain number of them as well. I don't remember what it's like. It's been a long time, but it's an expectation for their job, how they're paid by the restaurant is an assumption that they're going to be tipped. So when you stiff them or tip them less than the 15%, unless they did just a shitty job and they were the worst server on the planet, there are times when that makes sense. But just doing this as a practice, like, they enjoy it. They get their rocks off on treating people like shit. This is a problem, and that would be a deal breaker because not only is she just capable of it, but she lets that beast out. This is a demon. She's got a demon, man, and she lets hers take control. And it says a lot about her family, too. And guess what? If you ended up marrying this girl, you're going to be around her family, probably going to be around them at a restaurant a few times per year for the rest of your life. This is a character flaw that you have to just decide if you're willing to accept or not. You are not going to change her. She's been trained this way for 32 years. If she is capable of change here, it's going to take a long time. You're up against 32 years of training. We think working in food service should be kind of prerequisite before you enter the world as an independent adult. It should become a part of curriculum, waiting tables, or in some capacity, customer service, because learning how to deal with difficult people like this, and as a server, you learn how to deal with difficult people like this, right? Yes, you can be petty, you can be shitty, you can do this kind of stuff, but killing them with kindness is often the best way to win. You're like, I am not going to let you shake me. I'm not going to reciprocate and stoop down to your level here. I'm going to kill you with kindness. I'm going to offer you the best service you've ever had. And at the end of the night, you're still going to have a problem. And that's going to say more about you than it does me. Have fun with that. Not okay with it. It would be a deal breaker for me. This is a personal choice you have to make, OP, but it's not going to change. At least not anytime soon. It's so funny in the beginning. It's going to sound petty. I promise you it isn't to me. She is, in almost every way, she is the one for me. This is a pretty big deal, man. It's a pretty big deal. This one thing, it's a pretty big deal. I know it's different everywhere else in the world, how servers are paid, but the treatment of people, like take the tipping out of the equation, the treatment of people, this wouldn't be okay anywhere. This sounds like that rich kid on TikTok that's always using his daddy's money, and Gary Vee actually ran into him and told him to stop. He's like, enough. But the rich kid who treats people like shit because he's using daddy's money and he's rich, this is giving those vibes. The world just sees you as a garbage human being. You're not impressing anyone. How's she going to be like when your kid has a ball game? In this case, you've got a family of ASCON 1s here. You've got a family of truly terrible people. And an ASCON 1 offense is something that is a deal breaker, man. It is something that's going to rear its ugly head more and more as time goes on. How long did they say they had been together? Do they say almost 2 years? They've been dating for almost 2 years. Bruh, I can tell you with 99.999 continuum percent certainty, this is gonna get worse. She's holding back right now. Almost 2 years. Bet your ass she's still holding back. She's gonna force you to join the party at some point. Yeah, here's your reassurance, OP. Run.